Folks, good evening. My name is Mohammed Fahim. I am the host for the Virtual American Town Hall and the CEO of the Center for Strategic Solutions. And joining me tonight is John Laesch, who is running for the mayor of Aurora. Good evening, John. Welcome. And let us know who you are and why you want to be the mayor of Aurora.
Thanks for having me on here. I'm John Laesch. I'm running for mayor of Aurora to be a strong voice for the people, all the people. I'm not taking money from people doing business with City Hall. I think that there's a corrupt system at most levels of government, and we need people who will, if they want them to represent all of us, we need to get their contributions from small dollar donors, people who live in the community and support the platform that you're running on, instead of large special interest groups that dump hundreds of thousands of dollars in your campaign and they expect something in return. So cleaning up corruption is high on my list. Another big issue for me is the climate crisis. Scientists have given us 10 years to act as more greenhouse gases get pumped into the atmosphere. And I was on the Democratic Party National Committee, Platform Committee, and there were some amendments that I pushed that would have said we're not going to subsidize fossil fuels anymore. And the U.S. subsidizes $20 billion in fossil fuels. And these amendments got pulled out of the platform. And I realized that not too much was going to change, of course, with the Biden administration. So I decided to think what I could do locally. And I've already made my own house 80% more energy efficient.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Certified green builder. And I thought if I run for Aurora, we could make Aurora a green city and push this kind of new building technology that's being used in other countries and is developing and booming in other places, that we could bring that here to Aurora and make us a strong Green New Deal city with lots more economic opportunities. We have a 12% poverty rate. So it's not just the unemployment rate, it's actually people who are working 40 hours a week still living in poverty. And we need to bring up the wages of people. And so finding better paying jobs that are going to stay here, that are part of the new green economy, I think is a way to create a stable economic future for our city.
John, that's so good to hear. And I was looking at some of the issues that you have highlighted on your website. And I love it when you say that I'm not going to take any campaign contributions from those who do direct business with the city of Aurora or are seeking contracts. That is so important. And I also noticed that you want to increase your salary or decrease your salary.
Decrease, yeah, decrease.
Why do you want to decrease that, John? Everybody's trying to increase the salary, man.
Well,
what's wrong with you?
I think that one of the big first steps is to rebuild trust with the community and have people trust me. And so one is setting the tone that I'm here as a public servant. I think you were mentioning earlier that it's all about public service and not about party politics. And that is something that I want to bring and instill and change the culture of City Hall. So everybody that's working for the city knows they work for the taxpayers. And so this is just one move that, being the leader of the city, leading by example, I'll be taking very early in my administration.
Sounds good. John, you also talk about taxes and budgets and TIF districts, TIF district. For those of us who are unaware of what that designation stands for, can you elaborate a little bit on that?
In short, what it does is freeze the taxes for businesses that are in an area. So they don't have to pay any new taxes in this area as there's an assessed value increase. And so it's used as an incentive to bring businesses generally to a blighted area.
Okay.
They're not always used in a blighted area. The successful ones are used in an open field right off an interstate where the business will be successful anyway. They don't need a TIF. But what people don't understand about TIFs is that they also, the school districts, the library districts, the fire districts all still have to pay their employees the same amount of money, and now it starves them of taxes. So what those districts do is increase their taxes. So I was on the East Aurora School Board, and we lost $1 million every year to TIF districts. So that means that we have to replace that $1 million in our budget somehow, and so they raise people's property taxes. So it's a tax reduction for the business that's in that quote unquote blighted area, but
Right.
it's a tax increase for the residents.
Okay. I also liked your idea of the property assessed clean energy program. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? What do you mean by that?
Yes, this is one of the way that we help finance people moving towards alternative energy or energy efficient improvement. Let's say you're going to make a $30,000 retrofit to your house. You can pull the siding off, add some insulation, change out some windows, and
Okay.
put new siding back on. Cost $30,000. What you can do is borrow against your energy savings. This project is going to save you $200 a month in heating and cooling bills. That $200 a month goes to repay the loan. You have a zero interest loan or a real low interest loan attached to your house. The loan stays with the house because the house is going to be saving the energy, not you, the
Right.
owner. So
Right.
it'll affect the property taxes, and the person in the house will can move, and that bill stays with the house.
So you also talk about that you want to make Aurora an exporter city. What do you mean by that?
Well, if we're first to lead, I pointed out that other countries have moved aggressively in this direction. The United States has not. We do have a Passive House Institute in Champaign-Urbana. So we have one training institute. We'll have more here in Illinois. Definitely want to network with a guy like you to figure out how to do that better and find funding for those education initiatives as we train our workforce.
Mhm.
But eventually, if we're the first city to adopt some of these things, we're going to get the window companies, the door companies, the foam glass companies, and they're going to want to move to Aurora, and then we can start to export these goods and services to neighboring cities, people that want to replicate what we're doing. And people will save money on their heating and cooling bills across the United States, but the financial beneficiaries would be Aurora. So.
Okay. I'm looking at things, John. I mean, you're talking about things that are close to my heart. Okay. Regardless of what people say about the Green New Deal and all of that, people who don't know, what green is and what new and what deal is, they talk, nonsense as to what happened in Texas was because of the windmills. Sorry, Fox News. I'm sorry, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Okay, but I love the idea of what you're talking about is the micro hydroelectric plants on the Fox River that do not harm the environment. Talk to me a little bit about that.
These are actually used across the world. I grew up in West Africa. My folks are missionaries over there. It's hard to get power into the jungle, but what these things do, they carve out a side of the river. The water runs through the turbine, very low impact, runs 24/7, generates free electricity, and it's relatively cost effective. So if we put these up and down the Fox River, we should be able to power our city and reduce people's energy bills, right? So there'll be some upfront money to build it, but then the cost savings will be passed on to the ratepayers.
Now, I keep a pretty close eye on what is happening in the world around me, John. And a lot of what you're talking about, I haven't seen or heard other people talking about this. It's always about, give me money. I want to get elected, and I'm going to represent you, and then I'm going to come back and ask you for more money. Man, I love the idea of this tree bait tax that you're talking about. What is the tree bait tax incentive?
Yeah, it's a very small move, right? It does a number of things, but we want people to recognize that trees take carbon out of the air. And the more we plant, especially hardwood species, the more carbon we can take out of the air. So very simple concept, right? And also trees provide shade. So if you're not pulling solar panels on your roof, the next best thing is to shade your roof. Now, it might take 30, 40 years for that tree to get up there. But we just want to offer a little incentive to use a local greenhouse to put more trees in the ground. There's a lot of religious holidays tied to these sort of things and to planting and growing. And so it's also a way we can tie into many different cultures that exist in Aurora to have days where we plant trees and use local greenhouses and again boost the economy. There's another piece that's not really well developed on there where I talk about a local food economy and urban farming. also important to produce and grow our own food. I don't know about you, but during the pandemic, when people were running out of toilet paper and food at the grocery store, I was thinking to myself, how can I grow food in my backyard? I don't know what everybody else thought, but it's important, right? To think about
Absolutely.
these things. And if you're not shipping it all the way from Kansas, you do it here in Aurora, your vegetables get here fresh, they'll survive longer, they're not in a package on the road, it reduces your carbon footprint, and you get it right next door, and it's more jobs.
There you go, folks. This is John Laesch I'm talking with. He's running for mayor of Aurora. John has some great ideas as how to do public service and not just politics. And one thing that I wanted to talk to you about, John, is I see that you are also talking about investing in living wage jobs, small businesses, and our community. Now, having worked for 10 years previously as the Director of Business Employer Solutions and Corporate Relations at the Illinois WorkNet Center, I'm very much invested in, unemployment and employment strategies. And the numbers that we see, these unemployment numbers that we see, they all lie. I'm so sorry to say that, folks. So when you hear this, Thursday announcement that unemployment is 3% or 4% or 10%, don't believe it. That number is a lie. They do not talk about underemployment. And I guess that's where you want to go with this living wage jobs, John. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I mean, underemployment, you described it as people working at minimum wage jobs, poverty level jobs. And what happens is when people are living in poverty, they're usually renting, not owning. So there's less incentive to take care of their property, which affects other properties in the community. They're not able to be home with their kids if they're working two jobs to survive, which means that their kids miss out. Their kids become more susceptible to doing things that aren't in their best interest after school. So there's academic performance that we pay for. So low wage jobs don't help any of us. And a lot of the times we as taxpayers subsidize some of the services that these people get. A lot of the programs that we have, food stamps and so forth, are based on income. And it's good that we as a society say we're going to look out for it. But really what we're also doing is subsidizing the profit margin of Walmart. So how do you fix that, right? We can develop regional standards. I know you live in Plainfield, I live in Aurora, but we can reach to Bolingbrook, to Joliet, to all of our neighboring communities, say this is the standard that we want to have for companies who want to come here, right? And if we all agree to it, that means we're going to hold tight, and companies are going to want to come, right? Target's going to want to come. Amazon's going to want to come here and put up little distribution centers around. So that's one thing we can do. We can tie wages and benefits to the TIF districts that we talked about. So if we are subsidizing getting a company to come here, they're at least paying a living wage job. It's not, we're not subsidizing McDonald's.
You are so absolutely right. Folks, one of the fallacies that is out there is that, if you go with increasing the minimum wage, then it's going to drive businesses out of business and employers are not going to be hiring as many employees. Please get real. What John is talking about is on the back end, we are already subsidizing these businesses by having to put people on food stamps and other things. And if somebody is having a livable wage, then obviously they get to spend more times with their children also. They don't have to work, 2-3 jobs in order to maintain a family. And overall, you're going to benefit. John, so wonderful that you're thinking along these lines, man. I mean, you're probably the first person that I'm talking to over my 30 plus years in this country that has got this kind of thoughts so well laid out. So coming to the low wage jobs and living wage jobs now, obviously that's going to create a lot of, stability, for lack of a better word. And how would that impact public safety, police reforms, and, budget priorities? How do you meld those together?
So Aurora had one of the cities where we had some riots in downtown, civil unrest.
I remember that.
Yeah. So one of the things that the current mayor police failed to do is sort of to address some of the root causes of the civil unrest. Of course, there was a large response nationally to the death of George Floyd, But there were issues here in Aurora that needed to be discussed. And of course, we've already talked about one of them, which is the whole poverty, people living in poverty and not seeing too many economic opportunities in their city and opportunities for them. So when they don't, sometimes these people, you know, commit crimes of survival. There's been several carjackings, you know, people trying to survive theft, whether it's going through somebody's garage, breaking into their car on the street, taking the GPS and selling it. These things are all motivated by a need to survive. And so it goes back a little bit to the whole living wage jobs is the best crime prevention. But also there's a need in our community to have some oversight of the police. We want to see our police build better relationships with the community and find ways to get them to be part. I actually have a wonderful story that I ran into a veteran who lives alone, has a bunch of LP records. Police officer came to do a fraud case, and the officer noticed that he had all these records, but his record player was broken. So he went out, in the good of his own heart, purchased a record player and brought it back to this man's. And he said he had no idea how happy it made him. And he talked to me for probably 45 minutes last night. And he was just trying to find a police officer's name so he could thank him. And I think it's going to be in the newspaper next 2 days. I told a reporter, I told the police union, they're going to try and find him. But this is the kind of public service we want, is people that recognize there's a need and try to connect that need. It doesn't always have to be out of your own pocket, but to build positive relationships in our community with our kids. And then people will trust the police, right? We're now, especially in some of the brown and black communities, there's a mistrust, there's over-policing, there's harassment based on race. And we want to get rid of that, and we want to replace it with what this officer did for this veteran who served our country.
Absolutely wonderful. And I like your idea that new police officers and everybody, you know, fire employees, they should live in the city. That really brings them and invest them into, you know, community policing, if not for anything else. Like that idea a lot. And you also talk about, you know, transitioning some of the policing positions into community service officers with a background in mental health to respond to nonviolent calls. John, what did you do, man? Did you stay up all night thinking about these great things that you want to do?
No, these are what happens when you get a government for the people. A lot of these ideas came from the community. I don't think it's on the website, but I've been talking about it a lot also. To get people from the community, you have your cadet training programs in your schools and recruit from the community. So you have the next generation of APD who looks like our community, has connections to our community. And it's nothing against, I'm not requiring a policeman who lives in Plainfield or Yorkville to move into Aurora. If they currently live there with their family, they should stay there and keep their kids in their school. It's for future hires that we want to have that residency requirement. Right. And it's very popular, very popular.
Yeah, one of the things that we talked about in the virtual American Town Hall, you know, on Thursday, yesterday actually, was this huge influx of people that have come over with no papers. And, you know, what is going to be happening? My view on that, and I'm very, you know, very upfront with that, these people are already here, okay? There's no way that we can afford to send back 11 million people, and they are working in the shadows. We need to bring them out of the shadows, okay? Make them a part of our regular economy, and, you know, then have some other policies in place to make sure that future immigration is controlled. And I like your idea that the police will not coordinate with ICE. How are you going to make that happen?
So the Aurora police already have that policy. It's an unwritten policy that sort of procedure that they don't coordinate with ICE. The reason we need to have a policy in place and enforce it is because recently there were some raids in St. Charles. They arrested some people whose name matched the name of somebody who was undocumented in here, but they were actually a legal resident and a citizen. So now this citizen is suing the local, suing the federal government for a wrongful arrest. And if the city participates, now they're suing the city. So there's a legal financial liability here that I would want to keep the Aurora taxpayers out of. And secondly, like you said, there's people here. Let's bring them out of the shadows. It's not something I can do as mayor. But when we pushed these welcoming city ordinances back in 2018, when the whole thing, kids in cages along the border, our southern border, were happening, we met with the current mayor, and he was not open to these discussions. On the school board, I pushed for similar things, and we keep ICE out of our schools. And ultimately we sent a letter, but it still wasn't enough. And, we'll see what the Biden administration does. It's a federal issue, but, we at the local level have to deal with it and protect the taxpayers from any lawsuits that shouldn't land on are not a result of our police's actions.
Okay, sounds good. I think we are coming to the end of our conversation over here, John. I mean, the time just slips by when you're having fun.
Yeah.
And you do oppose the expansion of red light cameras. Man, I love that. Okay, I hate those
Have you had a red light ticket? Have you had one?
I had one a long time back, and I actually got out of it. But don't ask me how I did that. Okay, my friend John helped me get out of it. Okay, and but yeah, I mean, I don't think that they serve any real purpose except to make money for those red light camera companies and the politicians who got a payoff by making those things happen, right?
Sounds like you know how politics works.
I'm learning, John. I'm learning.
Politician gets payoff, taxpayer gets screwed.
I'm learning. That's across the board. That's across the board. Like I was saying, I know I do plan to run for office for Congress shortly, and I'm looking at the incumbent congressman who's been there for like 3 terms now. 80% of one of his mutual funds, 80% of it is actually invested in pharmaceutical companies.
Shocking. So I wonder how he votes on issues like that involve private companies making money off of taxpayers when it comes to pharmaceuticals or even vaccines, right?
So there you go. So
are any of them involved in the vaccine production?
Well, I'm going to take a look at that very closely because this is so current now. Talking of vaccines now. So how do you plan to evolve and adapt to this COVID-19 situation?
The vaccine rollout's the next phase. We've been learning as we go, but by now we know it's an emergency and we know the vaccine phase is. What we need is a Aurora level central vaccination location. We need somebody who can coordinate, a vaccine coordinator between Illinois Department of Public Health, CDC, the private sector that's distributing some, and then I would say even the public sector, VNA, has a significant footprint with 2 facilities here. We need to set up a vaccination central location at one of those VNA facilities so it's orderly, and then we need to communicate to the public to stay calm, your vaccination is coming. Things in Kane County and Illinois have not been as smooth as they have been in other parts of the country. So this phase we're handling a little bit rockier than the rest. But I think having one central person coordinating that, working through the VNA healthcare, communicating with IDPH and the county health departments is what we need to help smooth out that process.
John, especially as a representative of the Muslim community in Illinois now, I'm looking at what you're saying, that you're going to use your voice as a community leader to challenge those who seek to ban, divide, or exclude people from the United States based on class, race, or religion, such as the Muslim ban. And President Biden, one of the first things he did was say, hey, that is gone. How do you want to address that going forward?
I think first of all, as a citizen, when you hear or see discriminatory behavior, you have a responsibility to step up and say something about it. Silence is violence. Absolutely. And racism needs to be challenged, but especially if you're an elected official. So on the school board, I did this. I was advocating for things like Citizens Review Board, opposing the assault on brown and black people that was happening. in the Trump administration, and it's because I think we all need to use our voices to challenge it. So that's what I'm saying is, as an elected official, I won't tolerate it, and we will not tolerate workplace discrimination in the city of Aurora.
Wonderful. Folks, I am talking with John Laesch, who is running for mayor of Aurora. And you have heard John's views on a lot of the topics that we discussed about, from jobs to unemployment, to the Green New Deal, to immigration. John has got a smart head on his shoulders. He's willing to listen to ideas. He's willing to listen to people. And, one of the biggest things that I have learned talking to John is his passion for service. It's not about collecting money from corporations to run for public office. So your help is going to be needed to get John into office. April 6th is the elections. Please remember to come out and vote. Early voting, vote by mail has already started in the counties. So if you need any other information about how to vote, feel free to contact me. My contact information is going to be at the bottom of this. And also, I'm going to have John's contact information. Get connected, step out and help. The weather is turning good, right, John? So
It's going to
people
be
can
great.
start to come out now. Okay.
And I answer my phone. If people call, I'll answer any question.
Okay. That's great. And with that, let's end up the conversation for tonight. And I might be posting this on all kinds of my social media. When I say tonight, doesn't mean that it's going to be night wherever you're listening to us. But again, John, thank you so much for spending time with me, and good to hear from you. All of us are going to be voting for you and pulling for you. I don't live in Aurora, so obviously I can't vote for you. If it was Chicago, that might have been a different thing. People
Right.
who come in Chicago. Okay. Okay.
Well, thank
But
you. I appreciate the plug, Fahim.
no, John. It comes from the heart. Trust me. I know a good person when I see one. Okay. Let me put it this way, folks. It's about public service, not about politics. And with that, we'd like to end off this segment tonight. And thank you very much for joining us. Again, you and I have been listening to John Laesch. John is running for mayor of Aurora in Illinois. Good night.
Thank you.